a video which is all about the highlights of American literature. So, enjoy watching!
Let us start with the five major periods of American literature. The first is the colonial and early national period during the 17th century to 1830. During the 1600s, American literature consisted mostly of practical nonfiction written by British settlers who populated the colonies that would become the United States. The earliest American literature are mostly practical, straightforward, often derivative of literature in Great Britain and focused on the future. Here are the famous authors during this period. John Smith. He is an English explorer and early leader of the Jamestown colony. Smith played an equally important role as a cartographer and a prolific writer who vividly depicted the natural abundance of the New World. Anne Bradstreet. She is one of the first poets to write English verse in the American colonies. She won critical acceptance in the 20th century as a writer of enduring verse, particularly for her sequence of religious poems, The Contemplations, which is written for her family and not published until the mid-19th century. Benjamin Franklin. He is an American printer and publisher, author, inventor, and scientist, and a diplomat. He made an important contributions to science, especially in the understanding of electricity, and he is remembered for the wit, wisdom, and elegance of his writing. Second, the Romantic period during 1830 to 1870. The Romantic period began in the late 1700s. It was a reaction against the Age of Enlightenment and Puritanism. The attitude or intellectual orientation in the Romanticism characterized many works of literature, painting, music, architecture, criticism, and historiography in a Western civilization over a period from the late 18th to the mid-19th century. Here are the famous authors during this period. Edgar Allan Poe. He is an American short story writer, poet, critic, and editor who is famous for his cultivation of mystery and the macabre. His notable works were The Fall of the House of Usher, The Purloined Letter, The Telltale Heart, The Black Cat, and The Raven. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He is the most popular American poet in the 19th century, known for such works as The Song of Hiawatha during 1855 and The Paul Rivers Ride during the 1863. Nathaniel Hawthorne. He is an American novelist and a short story writer who was a master of the allegorical and symbolic tale. He is best known for The Scarlet Letter and The House of the Seven Gables. The third period is the Realism and Naturalism during the 1870 to 1910. Between 1870 and 1910, there were two main movements that took place in the American literature. These are the Realism and Naturalism. Realism was a literary movement that focused on the ordinary characters in ordinary everyday life situations, while naturalism often included themes of survival, determinism, and violence. Here are the famous authors during this period. Mark Twain. He is an American humorist, journalist, lecturer, and a novelist who acquired international fame for his travel narratives. He is famous for his adventure stories of boyhood, especially The Adventures of Tom Sawyer during 1876 and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn during the 1885. Theodore Dreiser. He was a novelist and was considered the outstanding American practitioner of naturalism. His works are The Financier, Sister Carrie, and An American Tragedy. Henry James. He is an American novelist and a naturalized English citizen from 1915, a great figure in the transatlantic culture. His works are The Ambassadors, The Aspern Papers, The American, and The Tragic Muse. The fourth is the Modernist period from 1910 to 1945. The advances in science and technology in the Western countries rapidly intensified at the start of the 20th century and brought about a sense of unprecedented progress. A sense of disillusionment and loss pervades much American modernist fiction. That sense may be centered in a specific individuals, or it may be directed toward American society or toward civilization generally. Here are the famous authors during this period. Ernest Hemingway. He is an American novelist and short story writer who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1954. His works are A Farewell to Arms, The Sun Also Rises, The Old Man and the Sea. William Faulkner. He is an American novelist and short story writer who was awarded the 1949 Nobel Prize for Literature. His famous works are The Sound and the Fury, Absalom, Absalom, Go Down Moses, and The Beer. Thomas Stearns Eliot. He is an American English poet, playwright, literary critic, and editor, a leader of the modernist movement in poetry. His famous works are The Wasteland in the 1922 and The Four Quartets in the 1943. The last but not the least, the contemporary period during 1945 up to the present. The United States, which emerged from World War II, confident and economically strong, entered the Cold War in the late 1940s. The 1950s and 60s brought significant cultural shifts within the United States, driven by the civil rights movement and the women's movement. Here are the famous authors during this period. Lorraine Hansberry. She is an American playwright whose A Raisin in the Sun during 1959 was the first drama by an African-American woman to be produced on Broadway. Norman Mailer. He is an American novelist and journalist who is best known for using a form of journalism called the New Journalism that combines the imaginative and subjectivity of literature. His famous works are The Naked and the Dead and The Ancient Evenings. Arthur Miller. He is an American playwright who combines social awareness with a searching concern for his characters' inner lives, and he is best known for Death of a Salesman. By the 1970s, the face of American drama had begun to change, and it continued to diversify into the 21st century. And that would be all for today. Thank you for watching!